race amongst the stars. It is the 41st millennium, and there is only war. We live in the Imperium of mankind, the greatest empire the galaxy has ever known. Millions of planets united in their adoration for the Emperor. But we are not alone. Fell Xenos covet our worlds, be it the insidious Eldar, expansionist Tau, or the brutal Horus. Armageddon is such a crucible. It is a planet any species in our empty galaxy would crave. Rich in mineral wealth and a manufacturing powerhouse, producing countless ordnance for the Imperial war effort. To be an inhabitant on Armageddon is to face harsh deserts of ash, chemically tainted rivers, boiling oceans, dense jungles filled with carnivorous flora, and wastes of fire. Amidst these hellish environs, humanity prospers, seemingly out of spite. They live in gigantic smog-choked spires that reach high into the atmosphere. These hive cities teem with human filth and villainy, and yet their industrial might is critical for the Imperium's survival. As an Inquisitor, it is one of my many duties to protect such a world. By the grace of the Imperium, I do not do this alone. Armageddon is well protected. As the founding world of the Steel Legion, it can muster thousands of highly equipped regiments to its cause. Should even these brave soldiers struggle against an invading Xenos threat, then the Space Marines, superhuman warriors beyond imagining, and the Titan legions, towering god machines armed with unfathomable firepower, can be summoned. But I keep a watchful eye upon Armageddon nonetheless. The planet was invaded before by dark powers, and I am not convinced that their tank was fully scattered from its lands. The planetary government grows woefully complacent, ignorant of what awaits in the darkness of space.
And with that, that is the opening to Warhammer 40,000 Armageddon. Now, I did complete the DLC as you guys requested, but then I've been having people ask me to go back and do the main campaign again too. I did have a replay version, but I played on easy, and apparently that's just too pitiful to watch now. It was ridiculously easy, because if you're unsure of how the game works here, there's multiple difficulty settings. As you guys know, I'm pretty against the very hard difficulty. That was actually, I did beat this game and the DLC on the very hard difficulty, and that was the very first video I actually uploaded on the channel here. Now it's very poor quality because I didn't quite understand how to do things, and I was using like an archaic laptop that could barely process the game itself, let alone do any sort of editing. So I am going back through and I'll just beat it on the hard difficulty. Now the thing about the main campaign though is you can beat it on the very hard difficulty, so if you want to have a significant challenge you can certainly do that. And you can, it is feasible here, but I'll go through the tutorial and then all three acts as well. But if you're trying to figure out what difficulty setting to do, easy has 200% of the requisition and 200% of the experience, and the AI models suffer 50 units per area, so that means you're effectively going to liquidate everything. And the only reason to go through easy is if you just want to see the campaign and don't really care about anything else, but it's so easy it's just not fun. Normal is the baseline setting, so you get 100% of the requisition and experience, and there's no buffs to the AI units. If you're playing the challenging difficulty, it's 80% of the requisition with 100% of the experience, and AI units start to have 10 models per squad. The hard difficulty, which is one I recommend actually playing this game on if you're trying to balance a little bit of a challenge with a good experience overall. You'll get 70% of the requisition, 100% of the experience, and the AI will have 20 additional models per squad. And then if you are going to do the very hard difficulty challenge, you get 70% of the requisition, 100% of the experience. The AI units then buff up to 50 units per squad in addition to the baseline amounts that they have. So that's where it starts to get ridiculous. Now, both on like the Orc Hunters DLC, I think possibly the Angels of Death, and the main campaign here, the AI won't continually reinforce their squads, so that's pretty much the big reason why you can end up beating the campaign on very hard difficulty and make it an equal and good experience. However, if you're doing Vulcan's Wrath, Glory McCraig, Battle for Golgotha, some of those other things where they'll continually reinforce, especially when they're starting to have squads that have 200 plus models in there, it gets to be ridiculous. Whereas, you know, a squad of Gretchen at 250 models can start killing off Sanguinary Guard is just gets to be ridiculous, and it leads to very monotonous gameplay because you end up getting the same kind of units. Now, the other thing that's real interesting about the main campaign here is you'll get access to pretty much all the units. So you'll get, as the campaign progresses, you'll get the Space Marines, all three of those factions, the Imperial Guard, and all the Titans and vehicles. So that definitely works out to be in our favor here and allows you to deal with most situations. So I'm going to play with the Fog of War and the undo buttons activated. What the Fog of War does is it's just like any other game, but if you turn it off, yes, you can see all the AI units, but they can also see your units, and they're very focused on killing and damaging any units that they can. So you'll suffer actually more losses paradoxically by having the Fog of War deactivated. And then the undo button lets you undo moves as long as you haven't unselected the unit and you haven't discovered or attacked anything, so you can't really abuse it too much. But it's very, very easy on this game to accidentally misclick and end up moving units, especially when you're moving through. So definitely keep that in mind. I am going to play with the cheat engine activated here, although I think if you go into the settings you could probably bypass that, and I find that the cheat engine frequently crashes the game, so it'd probably be a better idea to just change the settings and the options for the movement and battle speed, but we'll try it out and see how it goes.
Congratulations on your promotion, Commander. The Steel Legion needs more officers like yourself, especially as recruitment stations are becoming scarcer due to these cutbacks. In any case, you have been assigned north to Hive Deathmire and Armageddon Prime.
Hive Deathmire? I thought all the junior officers were being deployed to Hive Infernus for ranging exercises into the Palladus Mountains. And what I'll try to do here is show both the dialogue options as I make my way through the campaign. So
you will soon realize ours is not to question why, Commander, especially a lower-ranking Juve officer. You and your freshly mustered battalion have been requisitioned by Sebastian Yarrick from the 4th Regiment up in Deathmire, if you must know.
Sebastian who?
Sebastian Yarrick is an aging commissar, well regarded off-world if the rumors at the spaceports are to be believed. Apparently, he and von Straub do not get on, but the governor allows the old paranoid commissar the odd request to keep him from interfering in other matters. And this space hulk that's appeared in system has him even more agitated and paranoid than normal. They say he's as tough as a Catachan devil, so don't mess him around.
Greetings, Commander. I'll keep this short as I'm not the chatty type. You need to show me what you can do. I dislike weak leadership. It gets soldiers killed, and I consider that a waste. This space hulk inbound. Von Straub's fawning circle of advisors would have us believe it is uninhabited space junk, but I'm not so sure. There are many warnings of dark times ahead. The statue of the Emperor in Hell's Reach even weeps tears of blood. I need you and your battalion battle ready. I'll leave you with Drill Sergeant Goyle. Technically you outrank him, of course, but he speaks as if my words were his. Don't disappoint me.
In this exercise, you'll be using non-lethal ammunition against another newly mustered battalion, also led by a junior officer. According to my reports, you may know each other from your Schola Progenia days. Commander Benbar Jackson? In any case, don't let Schola ties affect your performance. Remember, you are under the Commissar's scrutiny.
alright, so the big thing is early on you have these Sentinels, so they are anti-vehicle. If you're not familiar with the lore, that's kind of how las cannons work. They're also used as your early scouts. Now, the Steel Legion infantry are generally pretty weak here, but your missile launcher, as you can imagine, is also an anti-vehicle, and then your Steel Legion infantry are just the most basic of infantry units here that allow you to battle other kind of infantry. Now, the big thing is they do have a range of 2, whereas the las cannon, as you see there, has a 1-3, so that's a range of 3. And then if you're kind of arrowing over your units here, you can see their movement options, and then them not getting counter-fire there because those auto pistols only have a range of 1. And then kind of the same thing with the scout vehicle there, is it has a flamer, so you have to be right next to get the attack. So the big thing is you want to keep your units alive, not only to save yourself a bunch of money, because you have to pay requisition to reinforce squads, but also because the more kills they get, the more experience they get, and the skill level and damage output between a highly leveled unit and the most basic of units is really big on this game. So you want to make sure that you can always maximize the amount of experience that you're getting with these units. Now this is the tutorial right now, which is why they're moving so poorly and just kind of letting me flank them and play around here. As you see, those binoculars, that's the vision. So as long as I stay away from one square around those units, then they can't actually see me. And so sometimes they get activated, sometimes they don't on this very first mission. And I think most of the missions going forward they won't. And then I have a 10-turn limit, so I'm just sitting back here trying to weaken them and not suffer any major losses here, because again, I want to accrue as much experience as possible, and I also want to save my requisition, because I don't want to end up having losses, so I can train them into better units once we're done with the tutorial, because you will get to carry through your forces into the main campaign after you complete the tutorial. So nice and easy, you can just review the map and everybody's dead.
As the Commissar ordered, I've been monitoring your maneuvers, and that was sloppy. You'll need to perform better to face the horrors I have witnessed. Believe me, boy, the Xenos covered every Imperial world, and it's up to the Imperial Guard to stop them. Don't listen to the fairy tales. The Space Marines are all but a myth. They won't be about to save your backside when there's an orc breathing down it.
Greetings, citizens of Armageddon. You may have heard rumors that a large deposit of intersector space debris is floating towards our home. It is true that over the next few days the sky will darken as this phenomenon, designated by the Air Marshal as Alveus Alpha Alpha Sextus, gets closer. But there is no need to panic. I can assure you, this wreck is uninhabited, and I intend to claim salvage rights for the people of Armageddon. Who knows what treasures, what precious archaeotech lie hidden within. This will benefit us all, so stay calm, don't panic, and keep paying those gilded taxes. Oh yes, and bless the Emperor!
We take to the jungles. I need to see how your battalion performs in dangerous environmental conditions. So make sure those gas masks are on tight. It won't be all desert plains, boy. You'll have to fight through canyons of fire, acid rivers, burning winds, toxic rains, and trudge through vast patches of gropeweed or Hell's Reach monster, a vile plant. And that's just here in Armageddon. As with the previous mission, you'll be facing Jackson's battalion. I expect you to show him no mercy. When I fought the Eldar and Orgil VX, they were pitiless killers. And so should you be too, if we are to face the Xenos and survive.
Just got word from that paranoid old dog of a commissar. We'll be facing you for the rest of our posting at this crap hole of a hive. You got lucky on that first exercise, but just like at the Scholar, I'm going to teach you a few lessons of my own. See you in the jungle, Commander.
Alright, so pretty much we just have to capture the 3 victory hexes here. It's just telling us about deployment. Those white arrows are where I can deploy new units. The left gear is the amount of requisition I have, and I did not get any new ones here. And then the one to the left of that is glory, and that's just like a score count for when you're going through the mission. It doesn't really do anything for gameplay. Big thing is we got bombards now, so these are our artillery, and as you can imagine, for most Imperial Guard units, the artillery are the backbone to most of our forces here, and I strongly recommend that you focus on an artillery build for most of the game, because you can really get them to do significant amounts of damage. They will suffer minimal damage as long as you keep them out of range of the enemy forces. And therefore you can always maximize the amount of points you're spending on getting new units. Now technically, if you wanted to min-max this, I would recommend that you try to get the kills with the artillery and your infantry, unless you're going to continue on with using this sentinels. I tend to disband them once we get better units and just use those requisition for something else. And the big thing is your requisition points don't always carry over from mission to mission. And if you end up getting transports for the infantry, there is a bug in this game that I call the transport bug because I'm just not very creative. And what happens is if you end a mission and the guys are in a transport, sometimes the game for some reason thinks the guys are killed, and then it'll use your requisition points to automatically try to replace units that should have never died.
Were you avoiding Jackson? He was holding court, saying that Yarrick has lost it. That the Commissar doesn't want us sharing in the rewards the Governor's explorators will find on the Space Hulk. I must admit, it's an exciting time. We could all do with a few extra creds in our pockets.
Because unlike the DLC, you're not guaranteed new requisition after every mission. It tends to go after major blocks or events where it expects that you're going to have suffered significant casualties, and it'll give you the points. But you'll always want to spend as much as you can, because if that bug happens, then you're going to lose that requisition. And then the other thing is it doesn't always carry forward, and if you don't spend it, sometimes you lose it. And so if you always have those points spent into units, even if they're not ones that you're using very regularly, then you can always disband those units and get those requisition points back to always maximize the amount of forces that you get. Because what I typically recommend is by the late game, you have access to all the different Titans, and I tend to like a very heavy Titan army, because then you can just blow through the campaign and missions and suffer minimum damage as long as you're not fighting other Orc super heavies or Titans themselves. So it makes it much, much easier. But obviously that's not going to happen for a long period of time. I mean, I don't think we get access to Titans until sometimes during the third act, if I remember correctly. Maybe we get Warhounds sooner than that, but again, I can't really recall. So it's mostly going to be an infantry artillery build. I think you could potentially make a good argument for trying to do some super heavies, which would be like Bane Blades and some of those other real notable tanks, but I like I said, to go just with a very heavy Titan build by the end. But that would be a viable build if you wanted to do the tanks, because you can convert, you'll get access to tanks pretty early in the game, and then you can convert them into super heavy tanks, and they'll keep all their experience.
We may make a half-decent officer out of you yet, Commander. But I have a feeling time is short. I can feel it in my bones. I always get armate when alien scum is close by. Carry on with your training. The greenskin filth hasn't made planetfall yet. So continue your exercises. We'll need well-trained, well-drilled battalions in the weeks to come. Remember, the Commissar is watching.
Ha! And I thought we wouldn't see any action until we were levied off-world. This wargame stuff is a waste of time. The sooner the orcs get here, the better. I'll show those beasts. In the meantime, it's best if you capitulate early. You're never going to take that river crossing I'll be defending.
So we have to capture the 5 victory hexes here. And so now you can see I've got 3215 for requisition. So I'm going to disband those sentinels for the additional resources here. And now these are the tanks you can start getting access to. I highly recommend that you get the Salamander Scouts, because they have 4 vision, which is the most amount of vision that a unit can have in this game. And then later on, you can convert it into a, I think it's called a Scout Commander vehicle, and that will also have the leadership ability. And so that any unit that's next to it will get improvements to its morale, because every time you attack, your units will automatically start losing morale, and therefore it can have some pretty significant effects on the amount of damage that they can do. So that definitely can be an issue here. Now I guess I can get a Griffin, which has some indirect fire, meaning that if somebody attacks the unit next to it, it'll be able to return fire, but it's generally not as good of a unit. Now over here on this west bridge, those are range 4 anti-vehicle tanks. So we're just going to pull back and avoid it, because those are, in this game, you'll sometimes get access to units, and those units won't carry through from mission to mission. So unless you really have to get a kill with them, most of the time you'll want to actually not attack units with what are called auxiliaries, because they won't carry through from mission to mission, and all you're doing is giving away your experience. And again, we want to maximize the amount of experience our units can get so it can significantly increase the damage that they do by the late game.
Our aeronautical casualties are high, but the Commissar insists we continue these exercises. He wants our ground forces battle ready.
Now, perhaps in retrospect, something that may have been smarter for me to do is to get the difference in the points. I could have I could have converted the missile launchers back into regular infantry and taken those points and either gotten another bombard, which is definitely a much stronger version than the Medusa, and then once I start getting access to rattling snipers, then I would have had a little bit of a more experienced infantry unit there to start increasing their damage output. But I don't recall how quickly we get access to rattling snipers here, because those are my go-to infantry for a large portion of the game, because they also have range 4 attacks, and they have a vision of 4 as well, so it allows them to be a scout and a harassing unit. And the thing that's quite surprising about the snipers is they actually have good armor piercing, so they can do damage to light and medium tanks. Now, the big thing is if you put your infantry into transports, then if those units are killed, you have to replace not only the units but also their transports costs, so it does increase the unit reinforcements cost. So for a lot of the game, I do not actually utilize transports unless I absolutely have to for some reason, because I don't want to have to pay those costs. Because again, the big thing about this game is making sure you can min-max your resource management here, and it's just telling me that every 100 experience I get, you'll get one of those skulls, which will be considered a level up here. So as you can imagine, that's a lot of skulls to be able to get there. Now, unfortunately, I just suffered some losses there out of the salamander, so I'm going to have to pay for reinforcing that. I suppose I could restart, but again, since we're not playing on the hardest difficulty, those kind of things don't matter. But if I was playing on the very hard difficulty, I effectively would have had to redo that last turn or the mission if I hadn't saved it, because I just couldn't afford those kind of losses, because you literally need to be saving every little bit of resources that you can to maximize your force selections and experience to be able to push it, because with all those extra models per squad, you can really get bogged down if you're not able to get them all reinforced. And typically after you start completing certain objectives or across certain areas of the map, sometimes units will get activated. So that's effectively what's happening here, is I crossed the bridge, captured these points, and now it's activating the AI to start moving out and attacking me here. But once you kind of get an idea of what the triggers are, which is what you really have to do if you're going to play it on the hardest difficulty, then you can kind of think of strategies to kind of game a little bit here. The AI and be able to cheese them, because definitely that's one of the biggest things to use in your advantage. So we'll just kind of slowly move up here as we're taking the ground, and then I want to kill these vehicles that are on the bridge here, because they won't be activated as long as I stay out of their visual range, which for most units is a range of 2 unless it's a very low tier unit, in which case it'll only have a range of 1. The biggest thing though is just making sure you're pacing yourself, because it is very easy to just bog yourself down, and if you do that, then you can definitely end up causing yourself to lose the mission, so you just got to be very, very careful. And then the other thing that's important is just kind of using fortresses and buildings, things like that, because even though you're thinking, well, that tank had a range of 4, why wasn't he return firing? It's because the buildings and the fort were in the way, so that blocks the line of sight. The same thing will happen to your unit, so it's just about setting up positions to be able to do a bunch of artillery strikes without suffering major losses here. Like this tank here, I need to kill it. Because he is going to be able to see my salamander and do damage to me. Now that probably wasn't the wisest idea, but in fact I probably could have come over there and attacked with the Bane Wolves to soak up a little more damage and then gotten the kill without suffering any losses there. But again, I don't really need to min-max to the full amount because we're not playing on the hardest difficulty. But if you are playing on the hardest difficulty, not like I said, not only do you need to make sure you're not suffering losses, but if you're having turns, the damage output between units is hugely variable. So if you're getting bad rolls, then you're going to have to restart the turn, or likewise if you're being attacked by the orcs or whatever enemy, but most of the cases it's going to be orcs, and they do too much damage to you, then you may have to restart that turn again to make sure they get some poor damage rolls. Because you can go from anywhere doing 0 damage to squad wiping.
The drill sergeant sees hope in you. I'm not so sure. You seem unwilling to make the tough decisions. Too easily cajoled. In any case, I've been summoned to see the governor. Goyle will continue to monitor you. Observe and learn as much as you can, and never underestimate the foe.
Get your men in line! I don't tolerate insubordination, especially with the Commissar not here. After seeing the governor, he has immediately left the Hades Hive. But one of his last orders upon leaving was that we continue training for as long as we are able. Send your forces to the Hecate Mountains.
There goes the senile old dog. Good riddance, I say. The old git was making me nervous with his judgmental stares. You'll be leaving next, Commander. The stench of failure already surrounds you.
What an optimist here. So, I think what I'll do is I'll end up deploying our forces here, and then I'll end up calling it quits here. We should pretty easily be able to complete the tutorial missions next time and get our going into Act 1 here. So it's generally, I think, 5 or 6 missions for the tutorial. But as you can see here, I've got 2 vehicles that I can get, but I'm going to convert these guys over to the command squad so they have the leadership ability, which is what that banner flag is there, and then convert this guy to a bombard since it's so much more powerful, and see what I can do with our positioning here, because unfortunately we can only deploy at those arrow marks here, and so it might put me into a bad situation. So given that I'm going to have to put them so close, maybe what I'll do is actually set up with a Griffin so I can have that indirect fire, and it'll get me 200 additional points. I do like Ogrins, they're quite powerful, but again, you're going to end up suffering quite a bit of damage, and I don't want to have those losses. So maybe if I got to be attacked and suffer damage, I'll just put the regular Steel Legion there. That way I have access to cheap reinforcement costs here. And the Salamanders are actually quite good at doing infantry damage here. So it's definitely an anti-infantry vehicle in addition to a morale buffer. So I think by having all these guys out here, this should work for us. So I'm going to call quits here for the day. I hope you're enjoying these videos. If you are, please give my channel a like and subscribe to encourage me to post more content for you. Have a great day.